I'd like to introduce Niho from Gilead, who has actually thought about how does he provide value to his business by executing on this data mesh. You can introduce yourself and talk about Gilead a little bit?
Sure. Thank you, Coy, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to start by talking a little bit about Gilead and then myself, okay? So Gilead, if you know, is an innovative research-based biopharma company, and our mission is to discover, develop, and deliver therapeutics for people with life-threatening diseases. Now, our mission is we focus a lot on researching and developing antiviral drug treatment for HIV, hepatitis B, C, influenza, and also COVID-19, right? Now, we also have significant focus on oncology, and indeed, we are the leader in oncology treatment via cell therapy. Now, as for myself, I lead the Gilead DNA, data, and AI platform, and I also lead the enterprise data governance function. What are the two core pillars of data mesh? We know what data mesh is, right? And we're going to come to that later. So,
a lot of times we have to map to the company's vision what the projects we work on. So how did you kind of look at the mission and say, you know what are we providing for our business?
The one key thing that we want to walk you through today is how we derive choosing data mesh, as the approach. And we want to tell the story on the why and then the how, right? So forget about data mesh for a second. Okay, let's think about what we try to do with the company. So as a company, our long-term ambition, right, is number one, we want to bring 10 plus transformative therapy to patients by the year 2030. We want to be the biotech employer and partner of choice. And then last but not least, we want to deliver shareholder value in a sustainable and responsible way. Now, from these long-term ambition, we do want to create a vision to elevate a data-driven culture and then drive new revenue by treating data and analytics as an asset across the enterprise. And with that, we set out to deliver and democratize access to trusted data and analytics. And the enterprise data and AI platform that we built is to support our vision to empower a data-driven culture and also scale innovation across all the line of business.
Mm-hmm. So usually we start with what are the business requirements, right? What is the business impact? And then we work backward and we talk about how do we support it from a technical services and technology perspective. So how were you thinking about this?
Yeah, so the way that we build our data and AI platform to support the data mesh is very business driven, right? And when I joined Gilead 2 years ago, we conducted a survey across the company, across several line of business, to ask them on issue and problem that they need our help with. But we were very careful with our question. If you go to the business and you ask a question, do you need any help from IT? The answer is no. Mm-hmm. We're good, right? And that's exactly why we do have silo problem in most companies, okay? So the approach that we took was we came to the business and several business and we conducted a survey and we asked them, what are the problems that you're trying to show, right? And by doing that across the board, we arrive at a common set of denominators in terms of business outcome that we do want to achieve as a company. We got to put on an enterprise hat, right? Now, from those business outcomes, we arrive at what we call a strategic imperative, and that's what you see on the screen, right? Now, and from that, those business imperative, we're thinking about the type of enterprise data and AI platform capabilities that we need to create so that we can achieve, three things. Number one, empower the lab business to autonomously is the key word, right? Produce and consume data with reduced cost of ownership, right? And then at the same time, we do want to ensure consistent and realizable policy enforcement across the lab business, because if we don't do that, then bang, we run back into the silo problem where everyone has their own way of doing things, right? Now, I have not talked about data mesh yet. Okay, this is just a typical approach on creating an AI and data platform to support the business outcome.
Right. So when I first talked to you, you were looking at a data fabric, and we were looking at architecture around data fabric, but then you switched to data mesh. What was the reason that you really focused on data mesh?
Yeah, I'm going to answer Cole's question in a little story, right? That I've been through several conferences, and the one question that I was asked the most is, among several data management approach, data warehouse, data lake, lake house, data mesh, data fabric, which one is the best? To me, that's the wrong question, right? The right question is, given the following context, what is the best approach? And that's Cole's question, right? So again, as I joined the company 2 years ago, I realized that we were facing with several challenges. Number one, we had a lot of data, and the data grew exponentially. Problem is, the data that we have, it was filled with inconsistencies, with noises, with bias, so low quality data, number one. Number two, we had intensified need for data integration across different domains. And then number three, we have silo problem with each and every single business function. A lot of business, they have their own way of doing data management and data governance. And to make matters worse, there was scattered initiative to centralize all of that in one team. To fix a problem, it didn't fix a problem. It made the problem worse because given the complicated landscape about data and our technology, it's impossible to build one centralized team across organization and think about scaling and fixing the problem, right? So from our experience, we learned that, number one, the monolithic data platform and approach, it doesn't scale. That's number one. Number two, we learned that top-down data governance, it doesn't work for the complicated or complex data landscape that we have. And at the same time, we were presented with several opportunities, right? Example of which is we was on the way to migrate to AWS cloud and adopting AWS data and analytics services, right, ecosystem. Number two, we had an enterprise-wide focus on deriving value from data and analytics. We do have strong people practices in the company at that time. We went through a very important transformation journey where people want to do the right thing, they want to do the thing right, and we got strong support from the management. This is so important, to organize right, to support the data mesh adoption. And then we look out into the industry, right? And we saw an approach called data mesh. Now, if I had to summarize, data mesh in one sentence, it is an approach to data management and governance at scale, and that's that, right? So if you look at the four core principles, right, the four core pillars of data mesh, it really aligns very well with the whole data management at scale, right? Number one, domain ownership, because if you try to be one centralized team across the company, thinking that you have all the knowledge to manage data from across different domains, that's not going to work, right? And number two, data as a product. So as you let different domains own the job of building data product, and you don't have a consistent standard on how a data product should be built, and then you run into a silo problem again, right? Meaning data are not integrated together, data are not interoperable, okay? But then if you let all the domain build their own data product, they're going to go and purchase different set of technology, right? And then sooner than later, you have almost every single AI, BI tool, data tool in the company. And that was the issue that I faced when I joined the company. And then obviously with that, we had duplicated effort, duplicate investment, right? High total cost of ownership. So we got to build what we call a self-serve data and AI platform. The keyword self-serve is so important. It has to be self-serve. Otherwise, you be a platform, you have to hold the hand of every single adopter, right, to adopt a platform, and then you become a bottleneck again. And last but not least, right, with all of that, you cannot scale with a centralized governance. So you got to create a federated data governance framework, meaning you let the domain handle the governance for their area, their domain, but then you create a framework so different domains work together so that data can be joined together, data can be integrated together. Now, that is why we adopt data mesh. It tallies very, very well with our context and our guiding principle. Now, that may not work for other company, right? But it worked for us for the following reason, for that reason.
So Nghi, the first thing on your guiding principle is talks about democratization of trusted data. How important is trusted data in that principle?
Yeah, so to talk about trust for the data, I'm going to go back here a little bit.
Can we go back to one slide, please?
Right. I went too fast. I didn't know that you asked me a tough question there. Nice surprise. So in order for us to improve, trust on the data, right, the key thing is to make sure that the data itself does have the right quality. And when I talk about quality, I'm not talking about the typical qualities dimension of data that has to do with completeness, timeliness, consistency, accuracy. That is just one thing, right? The key enabler for that is to enforce the product mindset thinking, where data is to be treated as a product and have clear ownership. That one team will be accountable for everything that has to do with that data that they provide. Okay? And then, the definition of data product, right, obviously, is have 6 characteristics: self-describable, addressable, discoverable, trustworthy, secure, and interoperable. Right? So to me, to build that trust in the data, we got to make sure that we have clear ownership of the data by a domain that know about how to do that the best, and ensure that we have across the company the right standards so that the data is built following those standards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and has to be exposed to those the self-service capabilities, right?
Exactly.
Right, so let's go into a little bit more detail around the thought and the architecture behind this. So, what kind of thinking did you think about in the implementation of the data mesh?
Yeah, so I'm going to go real quick with the animation here. So how did we get started then? Okay, how did we get started? Now, we decided that we got to start small, okay? But we decided at the same time that we got to make sure that, our approach, it matched well with the business objective and then the data strategy. So what we did was we tried to connect the high-level business objective with the data strategy, and then we defined specific outcome for our data strategies, and then derive a set of use cases to support these outcomes. And then we chose to deep dive on one single use case at a time. Now, from the analysis of the use case, we map out the data product and the platform capability required to fulfill the use case value proposition. And then the output of this process is a joint roadmap for data product and platform capability. Now, every single platform capability that we rolled out, it does come with a detailed execution plan and adoption plan. What I mean is, as we build out and release any platform capability, if they are not adopted, it's a job not done yet, right? So we strictly make sure that every single data product, every single capability that we build, it comes with adoption. And that is our validation of whether we have fulfilled a very specific business outcome, with our journey.
Right. Well, let's dive a little bit deeper into the architecture itself and how you thought about components of that architecture.
This is my favorite slide. Now, let's take one step back. The main goal of our data and AI platform is to make it easy and reduce the total cost of ownership to build the data products, and also to lower the entry barrier for data product, and also known as the node in the mesh architecture, to participate in the mesh. I'm going to tell you about our mistake, because that's how we learn. That's how I want to share that with you, right? So when we started, with the platform, we took a very technology and tooling approach, right? Oriented approach, and that lead to us, doing a lot of architectural refactoring, and that also led to us, building the data, and then work on cataloging the data after that, right? And you can see it's quite a big waste of time, right? So as we realized that it's not an effective approach, we course-corrected, and then we structured the platform into 3 planes that focus on the 3 different experiences. And the word experience, again, is a key, right? Because we really focus on the persona level experience. Now, here are the 3 plans. Number 1, at the bottom of the diagram, we build out what we call the self-service infrastructure delivery experience plan. So this plan focuses on delivering services that allow for automated provisioning of data and AI development environment that does include end-to-end storage and compute services wired together with access to data source. The second plan that is be on top of this is we call that the data product experience plan. And this plan focuses on services that would enable data producer to produce the data via a self-service mode. So essentially, data developer, they go into a portal. From this portal, they specify what they want to do to produce data product and AI product. And then, this portal would provision the environment by calling, services provided by the sales infrastructure plan, right? And then they would have the environment for them to work with. They do not need to know about the underlying infrastructure, the underlying services, right? They go through the portal. They focus on building the data. Okay, and obviously to support that, this data product experience plan does provide the data AI development starter kit as well. And I'm going to say the best for last, right? The mesh experience. Perhaps this one is the most important experience plan, on the whole mesh because it enables the mesh. Without this, we have no mesh, right? So when you look at this mesh experience plans, what it delivers is the following. It delivers the data product catalog that allow for data product discovery, right? That allow for the end-to-end data product access approval workflow. This mesh experience plan, it does deliver the data product observability, and that does include data profiling, data classification, data quality, etc. And then the last component that we have on the mesh experience plan is it's a suite of API so that we can easily register any data sources, any new data product onto the mesh, without any coding required from the adapter. And I'm going to stop here a little bit because I want to call out, the reason why, we decided to adopt the Informatica IDMC, right? So the beauty of the Informatica IDMC is that it's built with a composable architecture that provides us with a list of services, microservices that we can pick and choose for our need. The last thing that we want to happen to any of us, at least my principal as a builder of the platform, is to get into any vendor lock-in problem. Things change, right? So thankfully, the Informatica IDMC does support that. And then number 2, it does support open standard. It does support open API that allow us to connect different components that we have on our data mesh architecture together. It allows us to connect to the data that we store on Glue databases. It allows us to connect from the IDMC to the global data access control and also to the federated query engine as well where we serve the data. And that's why we decided to adopt the Informatica IDMC, for that reason. Now, there's 3 takeaways, okay? 3 takeaways from this slide, if this is all that you want to remember. Number 1, prioritize on the experience lead design instead of infrastructure and technology, because you got to focus on the end user, the data producer and the data consumer. And then after that, you adopt the technologies that support open standards and integration. And then we focus on building the integration to integrate multiple technology components together to create that unified experience and to promote adoption. So that is the approach that we took as we build out this architecture.
So what was the outcome? Like, how did you show value from this?
Of course, the outcome is positive, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. Right? So anyway, so what you see over there, and I do want to call out a few things, right? I think we are fairly successful in our data mesh adoption journey, and that is in a way proven by the fact that we do have almost all the business function across the company adopt our platform capabilities to be part of the mesh at different level of maturity. And I got to stress that, meaning the journey doesn't end there, right? And through that whole adoption, we were able to build, more than 500 plus data product on the mass, and that enabled the creation of, 500 plus BI dashboard, 150 plus, AI ML model using those data products. Now, the key thing here is the journey, it doesn't end here, right? We still have, I would say, a long way to go. And there's two things that we want to work on. There's two next steps. Number one, scale. We do want to expand on the adoption of the platform through improving the self-serve, a platform capability to improve on the user experience, and also add more data product onto the platform, expanding that data product to cover dashboard and report and the AI ML as part of the mesh. That's number one, scale. Number two, maturity. We want to improve on the quality of the data product through the continuous feedback loop that we have, and also, through the enforcement of policy, via the platform. Because those are the two things we focus a lot on. And to me, data mesh, it ends when you want it to end, right? The destination is what you choose it to be. There's no end, because as you want to mature, you can keep maturing forever, okay?
So last part of this session is, what did you learn? I mean, if you were going to do it again, what would you recommend our customers here?
Yeah, I know that I'm a bit over time, so I'm gonna leave the audience with 4 takeaways, from this. Number one, we learned that mindset, organizational structure, and operating models are the biggest barrier to the data mesh adoption. So we recommend focusing a lot on building the product mindset in the company. We're recommending on getting the support from the management to organize your team accurately, because without that, I think we all know about Conway's law. Without that, it's not going to work, okay? And then we focus on, creating the right operating model so that different teams can work together, on this mesh journey. That's number one. Number two, and I said this, right? Start small, refine, and iterate with focus on business outcome. Once you have gained momentum and once you have proven to the business that you can deliver, then you will be given the support to tackle bigger opportunity. And number three, adopt commercial off-the-shelf tool, because we were struck with a question whether we should buy or build, right? And that question we keep asking ourselves every day, right? But we decided for the context of Gilead that we should adopt commercial off-the-shelf tool that support open standards, and then we build the integration. Integration needs to be built so that we can ensure the unified experience tailored for the need of the company, of your company, right? And last but not least, we got to have a way to look at ourselves in the mirror, meaning we got to define a list of key metrics and then implement observability to measure adoption and the quality of our adoption along the way. And that's how you know whether you're doing well or not, and that's how you know whether you should, improve and how far, you are to the end goal that you set out for yourself. So
Great.
That's it.
So normally we'd be open for questions, but we're out of time. So,
I really want to ask one.
oh,
Sorry. Go back to the architecture, the reference architecture that you were sharing. Just wanted to know, where is test data management? Thank you.
I'm trying to go back to that. All right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is there something that is covering the test data management here?
What data management?
Test data.
Test data management.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. What you're looking at is not a detailed enough architectural diagram. That's why you don't see different environment over here.
you want to go?
Right.
Go one level deeper, right?
It's not one, it's a few levels deeper, and I'd be happy to talk to you offline. Think about this as, the environment that we have for dev, for test, for production, and also for validation as well, because we deal with JXP, data. So, if that answers your question. Okay.
All right, well, thank you, Nhi, for,
What is that tool you guys are using for observability, data observability?
IDMC. IDMC is what we are leveraging right now, and at the same time, we're building API for that. We have not chosen a commercial off-the-shelf tool, for observability or not. It doesn't mean that we will not, but at this point in time, that's an area that we will continue focusing on, and we will make a decision whether with IDMC, with the API that we have is good enough before we decide to adopt another tooling. So,
Operational insight
Could be. Yeah. So IDMC, for those that don't know, it's the Informatic Data Management Cloud. So it's our platform that enables a lot of our services around quality, integration, mastering, and so on and so forth. So you'll be hearing about all of that, obviously, throughout the conference. All right, well, we really do not have any more time, so I'd like to thank Niho for presenting to us today.
thank you. Any question at all, please reach out to me. That's a LinkedIn page on the presentation. Please reach out. Thank you, everyone.